LibertarianProgressive.com here. This is Thomas Keegan. September 27th, 2012 is the date, and November 6th, 2012 is election day, and that way we can, kind of do a, I guess, a fall cleaning instead of a spring cleaning of all these Democrats and Republicans. Every 2 years we have that opportunity that keeps passing us by, and hopefully this, will be the year. Today we're interviewing, we interview independent third-party candidates that are going to be on the ballots that you can vote for, and we are interviewing Seth Hollist, running as a Libertarian for the U.S. House, District number 32 in Texas, and his competitors are Catherine McGovern, the Democrats, and Pete Sessions, the Republican incumbent. And I would say, for Pete's sake, Pete, please stop voting against laws that, violate our constitutional rights. Please stop voting against the Constitution with, like, the NDAA, which he voted for, and that's a rule of law. He's acting like an anarchist by getting rid of habeas corpus and just basically the rule of law, where you can feel confident in the United States. Unlike the old Soviet Union, we can't be just plucked up and put into some Siberian prison without the charges known against us, a fair trial with a jury, and etc. All of our rights, all of them deserve to be known. And so, Seth, it's good to talk to you today. You're an alternative candidate besides the Democrats or Republicans, who together have managed to, have a 10% approval rating in the country right now. So maybe this November we can have that reflected in Congress and just have 10% Republicans and Democrats. But good afternoon, and thank you for doing this interview. If you could please tell us about your District 32 this year, what it looks like this year, and a little bit about it, about you a little bit, Seth, and what got you motivated to run in 2012 against this two-party, Goliath.
Well, thanks for having me on. District 32 is basically northeastern Dallas County, just northeast of Dallas in Texas. It's kind of gerrymandered. It looks like a deformed dog where they've got it set up. So Pete Sessions, I'm sure, had some friends in the Texas legislature helping him to make sure he holds on to his seat. In fact, we've had 2 debates, and he's been absent in both of them, so I would say he's feeling confident he's going to get his 13th term in Congress. But I'm certainly going to do what I can to change that, give him a run for his money.
Yeah, that's 26 years.
Right. So I'm running for Congress because I felt this time in our nation's history is a very pivotal time. I've always been interested in politics. I remember being a teenager, being interested in politics, and felt like I really need to get involved this year because it's just such a pivotal time in our country, and we're just not having the conversations we need to be having. So I'm trying to get out there and have those conversations.
Yeah, really, politics, some people say, oh, I'm not into politics, but I basically believe that, you can do what you want as long as you don't hurt others, and then I would have to respond, like, that is politics right there. It's basically, it should, they're not, some people say I'm not informed enough to make decisions for myself, or, then get informed. The only way we'll do that is to have, Thomas Jefferson said, an educated and informed public is necessary for democracy. It absolutely is. If you don't have that ingredient, then you're going to make some burnt or flat pancakes or whatever. It's just not going to cook out. And it's like being blind and trying to play like a video game or something. If you're not informed, then you're making decisions, and what happens is we have $1 trillion bailouts, and where the people who fail, all the opposite things are supposed to happen, like in the world, than what's supposed to happen in the world. The people who fail and are ripping us off, they get all the bailouts, and the people who work hard and and didn't need the bailouts. You know, like Ford had to pay some of their taxes to go to, you know, government motors and stuff like that, and who knows what Ford could have had the potential to do if their competitors weren't bailed out with partly their own money. And that's just one small example. I mean, you could get into even other businesses like hair braiders and stuff who, you know, can't open up a business unless if they go through the, you know, the trade monopoly, the trade organizations. They had to be approved by their own competitors, and the list goes on. I mean, we're at where we're at, and information is knowledge is power, and so.
Well, let me tell you, I had an experience in high school myself. You talk about, you know, being informed and understanding your government. I think that's a big part of the issue we have today is our children are not being educated about our government. And when I was in high school, we had a day where they were saying we're going to talk about the Constitution, and I was excited about that. That was great. I could, you know, learn all about it and get into it real deep, and they barely glazed over it. And I came out of that class actually feeling disappointed that we didn't really get into it. So I think that's the big issue we have is, you know, especially with our younger generations, we're not educating them about what their government is and what it was founded upon, and so they aren't informed. They don't know, you know, what they're supposed to be doing, what their civil responsibilities are to ensure they keep their freedoms.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe in some sense, people who don't vote are feeling like, you know what, I'm just going to go at it on my own, and I'm just going to live that lifestyle, that, you know, laissez-faire lifestyle already, you know, and just be beyond politics. But honestly, I mean, not to put a damper on anyone's thoughts there, which is a nice thought, and maybe if we all did that, and if everyone refused to pay taxes, refused to vote, refused to participate in any wars and so on, maybe that could work. But I mean, it didn't quite work out for Nazi Germany. It didn't quite work out for, you know, the Soviet Union. It didn't quite work out for a lot of other places because they ended up forcing those people into concentration camps and things like that. And all they had to do was get a little bit involved, a little bit more knowledgeable, and just you know, have a little more passion for truth, and the truth, and the idea of letting people do what they want as long as they don't hurt others, and so just being more informed basically, and acting off that more informed knowledge, and so that's so we don't have to vote for the Republicans and Democrats. I mean, here's another option. Even if you're not in Texas, I mean, it might, you know, it might be worth more than that big screen TV you buy to, you know, invest your energies into this. After all, this is, I mean, if you don't think, you know, the trillions of dollars of wars in the last decades have affected your standard of living, if you don't think prices at the pump and food and what you're able to choose from at the grocery store or any store because of the repression of competition from the agricultural business to everything, to pharmaceuticals and etc. I mean, it's just being short-sighted. I mean, we could have a lot more. And the evidence of that is all the resources that have been transferred over. You know, they've transferred all this wealth over through inflation and bailing out and knocking down the unseen potentials right to people that don't deserve it and don't work for a living, and that don't have a real job, basically. You know, and they're stealing our credit cards, and we just don't realize that because we think that they're, you know, investing for us. We think they're our financial advisors, but they're really just, you know, treating us like Mike Tyson basically, and they're Don King, you know. And
yeah, it's you know, one of the items on my platform is about sound money, right? If you have sound money where you're not dealing with a lot of inflation, deflation all the time, you know, prices are more stable, then you don't, that's one of the ways they transfer the wealth, is through that inflation. You can, there's a saying that you know, whether it's through printing money or through taxation, you're always, you know, the government's being funded one way or the other.
Well, the printing of the money is so much more stealthier, you know. It's so much more stealthier. I mean, it's no different than a mosquito taking some blood out of you, transferring some of those vitamins and nutrients and your energy out of you, and possibly dropping off some diseases.
Right, exactly.
I mean, in a sense. But, so, Pete Sessions, obviously, I think, I mean, I saw that that debate you did with the healthcare. The guy who stood in for him was kind of funny in some ways, but basically, I mean, I think his policies and Republicans and Democrats both view the United States as an empire, and I think you know, there's a choice here, a real choice. Both of them are empire, and I mean, you're more like the Republic, I would say.
Yeah, I really think that what I'm standing for is more of the founding principles that our founding fathers really had. You know, the vision they really had. I think we have lost that, and you know, that's one of the things I want to get back in our country and get back to those principles. Is the further we get away from those principles, the more divided we come as a country. If we can get back to understanding those principles and living by those principles, we will be more unified as a country. Well, there won't be so much divisiveness between us.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, the more, you know, it decreases crime, the standard of living goes up, people are happier, they're able to pursue their freedom.
Exactly.
That person you're running against, Catherine, I saw her on the debate. I mean, she seems like a nice lady, you know, and I'm sure, you know, she is a nice lady, but honestly, I don't see her. She's going to fit in. She's going to feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe she's a little more principled than some of the other Democrats there, but it's not going to make the difference that we need. I mean, we need someone who's going to boldly say, like, we're going to have an Emancipation Proclamation that's, you know, that's going to free more people than slavery did, which was about 200,000. If you know, count up all the people in jail for victimless crimes and things like that. I mean, we can have another renaissance right now. I mean, just a simple idea like that. I mean, are you, I assume that you're against the drug war. I mean, and there could be many different reasons: economic, civil liberties, families. I mean, what say you on, you know, the drug war, sir?
Well, let me say, first of all, I've talked with Catherine a number of times. She is a very nice lady, but like you said, she's
lost in the shuffle, I think, but that's just my personal opinion.
She's not really going to do what needs to be done. I mean, even if you agree with what she believes in, she's not. I don't see her having that level of drive. I mean, she is a very nice lady, and she was very gracious at the debate. But you're right. We need someone a little more bold in there, and I feel like I can be. You know, that person is more bold about what we really need to be doing. As far as the drug war goes, I look back to Prohibition in the 20s with alcohol, and you see how well that worked out. Well, I don't see the drug war any differently. Except that we've been dragging it on much longer than Prohibition was dragged on. And it's, you know, we see our prison population's increasing. Not just because of the drug war, but certainly drug war is a big piece of that. Where we're putting people in jail for doing things that really don't have a big effect on anyone else. And you know, we really shouldn't be doing that. If we legalized even just marijuana and, you know, sold it like we do alcohol and cigarettes, you would see the problems we have in Mexico vanish. You know, and a lot of these other drugs people are taking, I think, would be less used because there would be something else that's easily available and legal. So, you know, we need to end it. And it's unconstitutional as well. The federal government has no business enforcing laws, and yet that's what they're trying to do with the drug war. Is they're using military might to try and, you know, enforce the laws here in the United States by going into other countries and you know, either covertly through the CIA. We all know the CIA is deeply involved in the drug war. They've they've been involved in trafficking drugs themselves.
Yeah, it gives them a black budget they can work with that they don't have to report to Congress or be accountable for their actions that are unconstitutional, because if they do it through a private corporation, then they can avoid, that problem about, upholding the oath. And some of them don't even care about that. I'm not talking about just the CIA, I'm talking about Congress, especially. There are some good CIA people who have spoken out, and they usually get fired. And yeah, that's true. If I was a student in class, I would ask, if we're talking about prohibition, like how come, just a few years later they were able to make marijuana illegal, but they didn't have to go through a constitutional amendments like they did with alcohol?
Well, I think if you look back at the history of our nation, I think you look at the early 1900s, and a lot of things changed in our country. Particularly 1913, there's 4 things that happened in 1913. You had the Federal Reserve. I think everybody's aware of that, which, today is printing tons and tons of money like we already discussed. There was the 16th Amendment that was passed that same year to allow taxation on their income, which hadn't been done before in this country. The 17th Amendment went right along with that. It took away sovereignty from the states, turned the Senate from what was really a stabilizing balance of power between the federal government and the states, and they turned it over to the whims of the popular vote. And that means whatever's popular at the time, whatever fads are popular at the time, that's what you're going to get elected on.
And it still would have, in a sense, been an elected person, because they, what that did was, instead of electing the senator, it just was elected representatives that people elected, that elected in their state chambers or legislators a senator. So it's not like this person wasn't someone that wasn't elected themselves or anything like that. So.
Right. There's still a process there. And then the fourth thing that I think most people don't know about, and I in fact learned about this earlier this year myself, which I found very interesting, is that Congress reached, the House of Representatives reached 435 members. And originally the Constitution was based on a 30,000 minimum per congressman or per representative. Well, today, because they limited, a few years later, they limited it at 435 members because they didn't want it to increase. And there are some legitimate arguments for that. But today, that means that there's about 2/3 of a million people per representative. And that's to me is poor representation, and
that's a lot more signatures you have to get too.
Right. Well, and I think it's with the technology we have today, we could go back to what was originally intended, that that these representatives would be our neighbors, right? People we know and that really represent us as the people. Where today they have to have so much money and so much signatures and whatnot to get ballot access and get their word out, that they're looking to corporations and people with big money, and now they're representing corporations.
Yeah, with the internet, anyone can go right up to, let's see here. It's Seth.Hollist.org, right? No, that's right. Seth, SETH.Hollist. HOLLIST.org, and lots of other websites, VoteSmart, Government Track. There's a wealth of knowledge out there, and people can really, they should. I thought a thought. I don't know if this is practical. It's just a thought, but maybe on the ballot they should allow each candidate to put a paragraph of what they believe in, so people actually can look at the issues real quick before they vote or something.
Yeah. But to get back to your original question about, why was marijuana made illegal without a constitutional amendment? It's because, you started having more representation of corporations. And if you look at the cannabis plant or the hemp plant, hemp being a cousin to cannabis.
2 different plants, yeah.
Right, 2 different plants. Cannabis being the marijuana plant. Either one of them, they have so many... they're such versatile plants that grow really
Seth,
easily.
I always say, if we were to genetically modify a plant to help a small community, start to get an economy, those would be the plants right there.
Right. Those would be the plants. They used to make canvas out of them. They used to make paper out of them. The oil has all kinds of good properties. Even with the cannabis one, marijuana oil, it has a lot of medical uses. They're finding out. I mean, there's a lot of good benefits to it.
Yeah, against cancer, and then you can make ethanol. Yeah, and you don't have to smoke it, and it could reduce the amount of trees. A lot of these timber companies could convert over to and they probably have even more profits. So
the U.S. Agricultural Department, it had predicted that before it was outlawed, they had predicted that within a decade or two, it would become the primary source for paper, and we'd no longer be chopping down trees to make paper. Well, unfortunately got outlawed, and I think a big reason it got outlawed has to do with the fact that our representatives started representing corporations who wanted to make money. And if you've got a plant that grows easily and loudly and has all these versatile uses, they can't make very much money off of that, as opposed to all the other things they're doing with the to create similar products. They're making money off of it because they can patent it and they can do all those things that they can't do with hemp or cannabis.
Yeah, with nature's patents. I mean, Seth, a lot of people say that the tragedy of the drug war is that, along with marijuana, that hemp was made illegal. But I could also just put out a thought. I don't know if it's true. It's not. It's just a thought that possibly the reason why marijuana is illegal is because they really wanted hemp illegal, and so that it's just kind of reversed, because it does have so many industrial uses, and it's just a boggle to the mind why it's illegal, why people can't grow it. I mean, it's like something that's out there. It's like something dangling off someone's face, like a French fry or something, and no one's saying anything about it. I mean, it's obviously wrong. It has no common sense. Hemp doesn't even get people high, and yet it's illegal. We have to import it, which we do, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of it every year, when we could just grow it. It can make ethanol. There's resins that can be made out of it that are very strong. So, I mean, it should be an issue, you should be able to just hammer home, basically.
Right, exactly. And I mean, the only reason I've ever heard for it to be illegal is just because it looks identical to cannabis, and the only way you can tell the difference is to do some chemical tests or smoke it or something, to see if it has the narcotic qualities to it. But I mean, even cannabis with those qualities, we're finding all kinds of medical uses for it. And like I said, if you sell it like you do alcohol and cigarettes, I think it's actually at least no more dangerous and possibly even less dangerous than alcohol and cigarettes are.
Yeah, and if there's a candidate who's scared to talk about this, I mean, they don't have what it takes to be, a good representative. If there's someone who's not willing to address this issue, fight for it, we have the highest incarceration rate. We just went through like a lot of the economic reasons, the societal reasons, and so that's a big issue. It affects us immensely. We've spent over $1 trillion, and that's just one side of it. That's how much we spent. Who knows how much we've lost in addition to that because of those, unintended consequences. And so, and it's making bad will around the world as well, in South America and Afghanistan, where CIA is growing a lot of opium right now, and but who knows, because that's another thing. Transparency. Right now the cameras are on us. The government wants to know everything about us. They want to know when we wake up, what we watch, what we pretty soon what we eat, and whether we can get vitamins. There's people in the FDA that are controlled by pharmaceutical companies, and but when we try to get some information from we the people, our government servants who are just there to serve the public good, because it's a labor of love, supposedly, that there's no freedom of information, and without information, again, we're electing people that end up bailing us out. I mean that bailing out big companies that should fail. And so what about whistleblowers? What about governments? Should people be able to file grievances if they're working for the government in case they're trying to share information, or should there be a process for that? Should we have more open government? Should people be able to videotape government employees and stuff like that?
I've kind of had
civil
this
liberties, privacy.
I kind of have the philosophy that there's really no such thing as a secret. Yeah, there may be information that people don't know and you try to keep from people, but eventually that information comes out. I mean, sooner or later people find out and people learn about it. And so we're, the last few decades, kind of getting into this information age. And I think in a lot of ways we're still kind of in the infancy of that information age. And you can see right now with, laws like SOPA and HIPAA trying to take control of the internet, trying to put some controls around the internet. There's a struggle there between the people that are in power today trying to hold on to that power, seeing the internet as a threat, and then there's the rest of us who see the internet as an amazing tool that should be kept free and kept open. And I really think that if we could eventually, take on, really get that idea of the internet, that freedom of information, to really permeate our culture, and I think it slowly is, especially the younger generations. I think they call them Generation Y, that basically grew up with the internet, grew up with this idea of free information. As those people get older and start to take on more responsibility over our government and over society, I think we're going to start to see a real shift to where people are going to demand openness and honesty and transparency.
It's kind of like open source software in a sense.
Right,
basically, it's kind of like, showing your flaws for a short period of time being vulnerable. That's true. The part of free society is it is somewhat vulnerable at times, but the positive side is it's quickly corrected. It doesn't linger and it doesn't make things worse. People see those flaws and then it gets corrected by the best minds in the world, everyone participating, and it's the ultimate strength. I mean, nothing would scare our potential enemies more than seeing this United States America republic, democratically elected constitutional republic that is able to admit their flaws and then just quickly repair those things that we find that are flaws and keep doing that. I mean, that's that's the ultimate strength right there.
Well, and I think that's another reason why I think I'm a better choice is because I was a junior high school when I got my first computer, and I was running a dial-up bulletin board system before the internet really got big. And I've been on the internet for a couple of decades now myself, so I'm kind of right at the front edge of that Generation Y, or the back edge of the Generation X. So I understand those technologies. I work in IT. I understand those technologies. I understand the social impacts they're having today. Someone like Pete Sessions, who's 57 years old, he didn't grow up with those things. He doesn't understand them as well as these younger generations do. And we really need to protect that freedom that we've got there, because
they're making decisions on fear, and sometimes it's like someone that, like, you might ask someone like, do you see this movie or whatever, and they didn't see it, but they might say it's all right or whatever. It's probably what they're doing, because they're voting on things that they're not fully informed about. I mean, I'm sure Pete, if I don't know. I mean, he voted for the NDAA. I don't know how he voted on SOPA and
voted for him. He voted for SOPA and CISPA.
It basically makes people guilty until proven innocent. Like, they can shut down your website without, just by being accused. So, I mean, that goes against the principles of the Constitution, where, you're innocent until proven guilty. I mean... Right.
And unfortunately, I think that's permeated our law enforcement as well these days. The way where you see people trying to take videos with their camera, and then they go take away their camera and break it.
Yeah.
That was private property. They had no right to take that. They had no warrant to take that.
In fact, if you ask them, they have to give you a business card, or they're supposed to. And be fully accountable. In fact, the cameras in their own police cars, it helps them just as much as it helps any citizen. I mean, that's the reason why we had the republic we had. That the only reason people were able to get together was because we had these guaranteed rights in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Without that, there is no law. I mean, it's really, you know, we have the lawless ones in charge right now. They talk a lot about details. They can make 2,000-page bills and make it seem like they're law experts, but really, I mean, they're just tinkling around the edges, and they're not doing anything substantial. They're just, there's more damage that's being done than good, because I mean, those bills have so many loopholes in them. I mean, even if, you know, someone had good intentions, it's, you know, it's yeah, I mean, laws should be understandable for the common person. I mean, so yeah, it's kind of,
Right.
well, so I mean, just that thought in itself. So, you know, foreign policy, the drug wars, I mean, civil liberties, just running on those three things can change America. I mean, that's about it. I mean, for those are huge things that would change the entire world. Now, you know, there are some hot topic issues like Social Security, Medicare, abortion, and you know, healthcare, I guess, education. What about abortion? Like, what do you, you know, think is the government's responsibility regarding that?
Well, at the federal level, I'd say that the federal government shouldn't have any responsibility on it, and unfortunately, that means Roe versus Wade was incorrectly ruled. But until Roe versus Wade is repealed, it's kind of a non-issue. There's not a whole lot that can be done about it. You know, at the federal level at least. But you know, I'm an advocate for life. I believe that life is one of our most basic rights. Without our life, we don't have any rights. But for me to say that so-and-so can't have an abortion unless they meet certain criteria, I think is also wrong, because there's so many different situations and possible issues that could come up that there's no way we could legislate for all of them. It's much better for us to leave that decision for the, you know, the woman or the would-be mother that's dealing with that situation, much more so than trying to legislate it.
Yeah, the real ways to preserve life is to ensure civil liberties, to make sure there's an even playing field, to make sure we're not going to unconstitutional wars, and that, you know, people, we have an open and accountable government. We have confidence and faith because it's open and honest, and you know, people are you know, stand by what they do, and so and if someone doesn't feel comfortable, you know, as a member of Congress, to have the camera on them or whatever, then, you know, maybe that's not the job for them. So I mean, so education, health, Social Security, Medicare, basically, you can kind of put all those in a sense, in some way together, because they're more sociable things. They're more, you know, domestic things. They more have to do with, like, now I know you're for the free markets, of course, and the kind of privatization, the difference between privatization that the Republicans say, they use a term privatization. To me, it's just corporate welfare. Like, what they mean by privatization is take this very same agency, but just pay a private company to do the same thing, thus making them a monopoly, and also getting our tax dollar funds. That's their version of privatization, which, like, you could say, you know, you might use that same term, but for you it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean like we're going to give any money to a no-bid special contract or something like that. It's just people choose, and it probably would lead to more of a society where more people have catastrophic insurance, and the prices go really, really down. People are not mandated to do things, and you know, like, you know, who knows, we could someday, you know, like, I know in the 50s or stuff, I think they had like catastrophic insurance for like $200 a year or something like that. So I mean, and then alternative forms, not having suppression with the pharmaceutical industries, you know, repression of their competitors, being able to probably import prescription drugs from Canada if that's the better market value, and allowing, you know, people to get whatever they want nutritionally, like whether it's vitamins or whatever, and and letting technology take off, probably deregulating like another a monopoly is like, these trades that force, like nurses can't go out and freelance and do certain things. That's a lot of people, if there's more clinics and people being able to buy direct, get some health care from like a nurse or something who might be, or a doctor who might be just offering their services, but and they're based on their reputation, whether you want to go to them or not. Obviously they would have to have a good reputation for something like that, but you might be able to get service at a super duper low rates, and compared to the tens of thousands of dollars. And there are a lot of bankruptcies that happen in our healthcare. I mean, it's ridiculous how much some of these things cost.
Let me give you two words that, even under today's current system, these two words would fix 80% of our problems with these social services. The two words is immigration and nutrition. So, if it wasn't for immigrants coming to this country over the last 50 years or so, Social Security would be would be paying out more than it's taken in for the last 20 years. It's because of immigration and the people that, those younger kids coming in with those immigrants and that have grown up and now have jobs that have been continuing to allow us to keep that money flowing into the program. The problem is what you would refer to as a demographic winter, essentially, where you don't have enough children to take care of the aging population. And
now,
Rand
Paul introduced something like where if you just, kind of step up the age and do means testing, it would make Social Security solvent for a pretty long time.
Yep.
Do you think that's a better solution than what we have now, or
I think it is.
It supports?
It is, and I think, it's not. I don't think it's the ultimate solution, but I think it's a better solution, and I would certainly support anything that gets us.
So
closer.
You are able to, even though you have like a principled goal, which is, basically what seems like the future. I mean, if I was to imagine like a future, meaning someplace that's more technologically advanced, a place where people have learned from the past and are wiser because of all the history, and it's just more advanced in general, then I would imagine, a more libertarian society where, there basically is, a more libertarian society, basically laissez-faire, golden rule, basically everything run by the golden rule. And but I mean, you're practical in a sense where you wouldn't like, that would be better than what we have now. So I mean, that's
right. The problem is you've got so many people right now relying on the system that if you just yanked it out from under them, it would cause some problems for a lot of people. So what we really need is plans and strategies to phase these things out. Solutions.
And they have to be done in the right order. I mean, before we start like cutting on people, I think we definitely should, make sure that we put things in place where there's no more corporate welfare as well. You can't just have like the people have cuts while the corporations and banks are and etc. Halliburton's and etc. are still able to be on the dole basically, and
and that's where it starts. I think is we've got to get the corporations out of the government. We need we have a separation of church and state idea in this country. We need a separation of corporation and state idea as well in this country.
It's the exact same principle. I mean, it's just a large organization that wants to have unjust influence into and be a if they have, they're basically the government if they have that much influence in it.
Yeah, so
it's a power grab.
Yeah. And this, like I said, with the other thing with nutrition. 80% of the medical problems or the medical treatments in this country today are for chronic diseases. The vast majority of those chronic diseases could be treated by proper nutrition. But unfortunately, we have a United States Department of Agriculture that has all these lobbyists from all these different agricultural companies telling them what to push and what to support. And it's not really the food that's actually what we should be eating. You know, it's not.
We
it's
eat
not the proper
horribly.
food.
Yeah, starch. I'm actually on a no starch and a carbohydrate diet for. I'm just doing it for like 2 months, you know, and just trying to get myself back on track. But I mean, and plus also the other side, nutrition. And it's very true. We're so depleted in nutrition. I mean, if you look at the stats, I mean, just look at the stats. I mean, we're completely depleted.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's so like I said, it's the problem is because you've got these government agencies that, you know, these corporations say, well, let's influence these government agencies. Let's get our lobbyists in there and influence them. Well, if we didn't have those government agencies to begin with, there wouldn't be anybody there for the corporations to influence.
Well, if people had more property rights too, where they could do whatever they want on their lands, like farm and all that kind of stuff, you know, and have a business and stuff like that, maybe people wouldn't be so dependent on things. Maybe if we could open up some land so people could, like, maybe poor people, maybe let them buy it for some lots for cheap or something and let them build. Maybe they could grow a farm on there and you know, grow their own food instead of begging for it. Maybe we could have sections that, you know, we let people build, like they could build kind of like in the Old West, like their own town or whatever. Maybe have some nonprofits help along with that if people that have expertise want to chip in. But basically let them do what they want. Let them grow and be you know, there's wood around them. They can make their own houses. I mean, I know a lot of people probably think that's ridiculous, but that, I mean, in some sense, there's an opening there of a thought. And so, I mean, lots of things like that. I mean, there's so many things that more freedom would make it more prosperous. Instead, you know, we have council cities that are owned by contractors that, you know, it's just never ending. Like, you know, you know, they want to buy up all the property.
It'd be a good way to get all of this BLM land, or Bureau of Land Management land, that's controlled by the federal government, turned back over to private ownership, or back over to the state. I don't mean just
selling it to, you know, whatever, Mr. Millionaire or Monopoly Man, but also just like individual people, like you know, half-acre or 1 acre lots and stuff like that, and
give it to them, right?
Yeah, give it to them. Let them farm on there.
This land belongs to the people. Let's just give it to them.
Yeah, give some of it away, and yeah, absolutely, I would agree. And if someone had an acre of land, you think they're going to pollute it all? No, they're probably going to build something, you know.
They're going to take care of it.
They're going to take care of it, and that would help immensely. I mean, that would be a huge. I mean, if that would give people the respect, that would give them something to work for, something they can build on. I mean, that would be huge. And don't have any permits or property taxes either, as long as they're not, you know, polluting in their neighbor's area, you know. And it could reduce property values even more, so more poor people can buy up these houses and stuff. So I mean, so yeah, I mean that's you know, to me that sounds, you know, like renaissanceal thinking that we need, but it's much better. And that kind of gets into, you know, how some Green Party people might think of things. I mean, in a sense, you know, maybe not exactly like it, but it's getting back to nature in a sense, and being self-sufficient and not having anyone in your way. And so I think, you know, there could be coalitions on that. The other thing I was going to say is I think, you know, there could be public options personally for me who can understand the other argument, as long as there's two things that have to take place. It's voluntary. That's one thing, so no one's forced to buy it or put their taxes towards it. And it, you know, pays for itself. I mean, so if people want to get together and have a public option that doesn't have to pay executive salaries and can buy in bulk and you know, not have advertising costs and be accountable to you know, elected officials, then I'd say go for it, you know. But I don't know if you agree with that, but I mean, that could be another possible compromise type of solution, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. It reminds me of that billionaire guy, that Libertarian billionaire guy that's trying to build the boats out in the middle of the ocean to kind of create a competition of societies. What type of society you want, you go pick whatever you want and you go live on that kind of man-made island. But, you know, we have all this land right here in the United States that's government controlled. And I think a lot of the green people and a lot of the environmentalists would say, well, we need to preserve that land. Well,
I mean, I think it would be nice to have some parks, but I mean, there is a lot of land. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people that don't have to be sleeping on benches when they could be growing, you know, corn or whatever on their own lands, you know.
Well, are you familiar with Agenda 21?
I am familiar with that. The United Nations.
Kind of one of the. Yeah, it's one of the goals of Agenda 21 is to have all this land that's off limits.
I know.
And it really kind of forces us into these urban areas and makes us dependent. It's, you know, to me, it's backwards.
So, I mean, a lot of people, once they see the big picture that you might have your own land, I think that actually can close a sale, because that opens the door for a lot more possibilities and empowers people so much more. Then maybe, you know what, you know, we don't need the projects or whatever, you know, and so on, because this would be so much more better, or just anything, you know, food stamps or whatever. I mean, but that's the last. I mean, you know, people are debating over $1 million issues when there's actually $1 trillion things that should be a priority. Right. I think, and you know, we're not talking about roads here. We're talking about like life and death situations, huge earth-changing things here, and you know, we can argue about roads, you know, a couple of years down the line, maybe once some of these big issues are addressed, you know.
Well, I was going to say that I grew up in the Salt Lake Valley in Utah, and you look at paintings of that valley before it was populated, it's a barren desert. You look at it today, and it's green because people are there taking care of it and cultivating it and growing it, and, you know, it's, to me, that's more environmentally friendly.
Oh, yeah, and I love seeing the stars at night, and you know, I mean, you have so much light pollution. I mean, not to say that, you know, I don't mind big cities either. You know, I think it's exciting and fun, and bright lights are cool, and you know, party all night. But you know, it is nice to get out in nature and be self-sufficient as well. Absolutely.
Sure, and you know, I would say that you know, we have all these national parks. I would say the national parks really ought to be state parks.
Or yeah, or state parks, someplace where people can go that they don't feel like they're trespassing on people's property and get to see some nature, you know. Right. I think that could be reasonable, but I think there is plenty of land that we can open up.
Here in Texas, we have, you know, 99% private ownership of land, and there's still those opportunities available. There's still, you know, people who will, you know, nonprofit organizations that own off-road parks. You can go pay a small fee to use their park and become a member. Or there's people that will let you camp on their land. You know, you can lease the land for hunting, or, you know, those things are still available. And we have 99% private ownership, so it's not. Yeah,
there's a lot of places to visit in Texas. I mean, I'm sure people could wiki travel and you know, look that up, and I'm sure you'll find tons of destinations in Texas. Any issues I didn't bring up, and on that also, just in closing here, who is some of the people that have been on your mind lately while you've been, you know, involved in this campaign? If you wouldn't mind sharing, who have been some of your inspirations or people that you found interesting, and why?
Well, I've always been interested in George Washington. He's always been kind of somewhat of a hero for me, you know, one of the founding fathers. But more recently, I've been working on I worked on the Ron Paul campaign earlier this year. I helped out a lot with the people here in Dallas on that campaign. So certainly Ron Paul is, I think, a very formidable figure in the political world today. I think it's unfortunate what the RNC did to him, you know, last month, but.
Yeah, changing the goalpost as the game goes on.
Right. But there's another great candidate out there for president. His name's Gary Johnson. And I'm helping his campaign now as much as I can while I'm still, you know, mainly focused on my own campaign.
You could do both at the same time, in a sense, you know? I mean, because it's all, like, I mean, hopefully we can get, like, you know, double-digit numbers of independent third-party candidates to the House. We were talking about the Senate and the House before, and I think the House is really where it's at. This is where we can make an impact. This is more local. It happens every 2 years. Right. The districts aren't so overwhelming, and I mean, all we have to do is vote in different people and spread the word, and choose the most qualified candidate who's going to adhere to the Constitution.
And that's a lot what I've been telling a lot of these Ron Paul people that are really upset about what happened now. I'm saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket with one guy. Don't give one person so much power. I know Obama has been trying to act like he's got all this power he doesn't have.